Aloha, this is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing Desiree Proctor and Erica Harrell, the writers, and Lynn Yoshii, artists. They are the creative team of Nuclear Power from Fan-Based Press. It is available on Comixology, and it is available in trade paperback as well. Erica, Desiree, Lynn, how are you guys doing today?
Great.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm going to do just a quick history of your guys' works. Actually, Desiree and Erica, I'm going to say right now, you guys are working on a Disney Plus show, Ultraviolet and the Black Scorpion. It's going to come out next year, right, in 2022.
Yes.
And today, December 6th, you guys have a short story in Marvel Voices that's coming out today. Is that correct?
It is. As part of their anthology series, Comunidades.
Thank you very much. And then Lynn, I got this from you, from one of your written interviews, is that you were a former Marvel assistant editor.
Yeah, a long time ago.
DC Talent Showcase 2017, and you are currently a graphic artist for a toy company. Is that correct?
No, a little bit outdated information. DC Talent 2016.
Okay.
And I was a graphic artist for a Pressman toy company, but they're they moved from New York to Texas. So, so the job was gone. But so I decided to become a freelance, full-time comic book artist in 2015. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
And the assistant thing was a long time ago.
Well, I'm sorry. It's pretty cool that you decide to do full-time as a freelance artist. Okay. So now, before we get in the interview, I want to give a big shout out to Barbara Dillon of the Fan-Based Press for setting up this interview. Barbara, thank you very much. I'm going to say, let's start talking about nuclear power.
Yeah, let's do it.
How did all of you come up with this story?
I feel like Erica and I both of our mothers are Cuban and had been really affected by the Cuban Missile Crisis. So it's always been a time period we've been interested in. And then one day it was just kind of like us talking and saying, what would have happened if the USSR and the United States had nuked each other during those 13 days in October? What would our country look like today? And then we just did a ton of research and looking at strike maps to see what areas of the US and Europe and Russia would have been hit. And from there, we kind of just came up with our story and just built off of each other's ideas.
Yeah, and we really were influenced also by Desiree comes from a military military family background. And so we kind of, our entry point character, whose name is Claudia, we kind of wanted to see what someone who came from a military background, who is, working for this government, that the newly established government post this bomb going off, and how she would feel about being a patriot to this country, and then how would she feel if she found out that her government was lying to her.
And Lynn, how did you get involved with this this cool idea? This project?
So I was very fortunate to meet Erica and Desiree through the 2016 DC Talent program. They were part of the writers, and I was part of the artist group. But we were able to meet at one point, and apparently I was stalked. And they tracked me down at a convention. They asked me to, and they invited me to work on the project. And this is a great opportunity. These are very two talented writers, so I said yes.
Yes. Well, you have to understand that Lynn is very, very, very talented, and we loved her work just right off the bat. And for us, we really wanted an all-female team. And, we wanted to, when we approached Fan-Based Press with Barbara and Bryant, we were bringing this story to them and saying, we'd really love, a female artist. And we also, don't really want to look at any other artist other than Lynn. So this is going to hinge upon us getting her.
That is pretty cool. Now, this question is for all of you. who are your main? I know Claudia is one of your main characters. Who are the rest of the characters in this story?
We have Dr. Claudia Tachi. She works for the new country that's formed after the World War III. It's called the American Union. She works for the American Union as a gynecologist, and she's like a major in the army there. And her commanding officer is Major General Lynch, and he's in on the secret and has been keeping that from Claudia. And then her husband, Dean, is someone who, they've been trying to have a family for several years, but because of the nuclear contamination have been struggling to do so. And then there's Reed and Iris, and the people that live beyond the border wall, because in this new country after the bombs fell, the government built this wall around the country, around the quote unquote good soil, to keep the nuclear contamination out, not realizing at the time in the 60s that contamination travels through the soil and the water and the air.
And also not realizing that there was like, a bunch of people who had survived, but were living in this kind of like nuclear wasteland. And now it's a few generations later. The Reed and Iris are from those generations post the bomb.
Yes. And then there's Lucy Coley, who also served in the military, but she just did the required 4 years and then left. And she's a patient of Claudia's, who gets wrangled into this whole adventure she goes on.
Yeah, a pregnant patient who becomes kidnapped.
And then this is, and this is for all of you. And Lynn, please chime in. How did you guys come up with like the character designs? And actually also too, the setting in the American Union is in a specific place in the United States, right? It plays a key role.
As far as the character designs go, Erica and Desiree, they both gave me brief character descriptions and sort of like, if there was an actor who's going to portray them, this is who I want to be. I'll take that, as sort of like a guideline. Not necessarily as fault. I'm not really good at likenesses, so whatever actor that they suggest is like, well, I'll try to get the sense of them, but probably not the likeness of them. But yeah, basically, I would gather photo references of particular actors, maybe match them together. Let's see, what was the other part of your question? Location?
Yeah, I mean, because it takes place in Chicago, correct?
Yes.
The location, yeah. Desiree and Erica can answer that one.
Yeah.
That was part of, in doing our research, like Desiree mentioned, when we looked at like where the bombs would fall and the fallout zones, basically the East Coast, the South, and the West Coast would be gone. And so we were like, well, the next major city that was in existence that had infrastructure and, the ability to have like a capital would be Chicago. And it would be mostly, protected from the actual like plans of where the real bombs would have went off. So we were like, it very much makes sense. Like Chicago also has access to like the farmlands of the Midwest too. So it's like the farmlands could ship supplies in and they could, reestablish government around that city.
Yeah.
Sorry, Desiree, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and in regards to like the look of how Chicago appears in our alternate history, a lot of that came from photos of looking at like how Cuba looks now. Like it's kind of trapped in this world that still somewhat exists in the 1960s. They still have very old cars and like they don't really have a lot of internet access. So we also used that as reference photos for Lynn when she was like drawing the world of the American Union.
Yeah, my reference folder is like so much stuff from the 60s and 70s. But yeah, we have even had a Pinterest board where we just like collected sort of like inspiration board of how everything was going to look from the color palette and everything. Yeah.
Before I continue on, off the cuff question, because Lynn, like you said, that Desiree and Erica gave you kind of like, well, this is the actress we would like to see Claudia, to play Claudia. Can I just ask, who, like for Claudia, which actress did you guys kind of sort of model?
Who did you pick?
I don't even remember. I feel like He sent over a variety of women that kind of looked the same.
Yeah, I feel like it was like Amy Adams was maybe one of them, but also maybe like a Jessica Chastain was maybe one of them.
Yes.
Yeah, I was looking at Jessica Chastain and what's the, I can't remember the actress's name. But also, let's see, Gillian Anderson was one.
Right.
Like the younger Gillian Anderson.
A lot of redheads.
A lot of redheads. Yeah. A lot of fiery redheads I was looking.
Yeah. And then like Lucy Coley was actually, the character reference was a friend of mine named Kim Coley.
Yeah. That was like one of her friends from childhood that like we also like ended up like knowing each other out in Los Angeles, and we were like, oh, she's Jamaican and what's her Indian?
Yeah, Jamaican and Indian, and she was always like, there's nobody that looks like me in media. And so I was like, okay, well, I can change that a little bit.
All right. A fun question. So your friend, is she going to get any cut from the profits for this book, since she's kind of sort of in there? Is she going to appear with you guys at conventions doing autograph signing?
She just has to like support us and repost our comic book all the time. And be like, look, it's me.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to continue on. So my next question, it's more for Lynn, and Erica and Desiree, you guys can chime in. So, well, first off, this question is more direct toward Lynn. Lynn, may I ask, can you describe to our listeners your art style for the series? Because I love it. It's
okay. So for this particular art style, the color palette was sort of inspired, sort of the minimalistic coloring style of Darwin Cook from his like Richard Parker series. Which is a great graphic novel. But it's sort of inspired by not exactly the same kind. Also out of practicality, because I was doing everything from the coloring to lettering and everything, I thought that maybe just using a minimal color palette would save time. I don't know. But yeah, that was the idea. The initial red was definitely inspired from the propaganda posters from the 50s. Like the Soviet Union kind of stuff. So because we want to kind of give a totalitarian feel to it.
Yes.
And like basically changing the colors for like, it was mostly for like scene changes, not so much chapter changes, but yeah, so we decided to use that. I don't know if I boxed myself into a corner by doing this, but it was an interesting, like a storytelling experiment using those color palettes. Yeah.
And then Desiree and Erica, did you guys, kind of like regarding the color palette, did you guys talk to Lynn about it? Like, hey, for the when they're in Chicago, let's do the red palette. When they're outside of the wall, let's use the. I'm trying to remember, I think it's green. Yeah.
Green. Yeah. It was definitely an ongoing discussion. I mean, Lynn was the one that came to us with the idea of doing the color palette the way it is in the comic, and like with the Soviet propaganda colors and that are prominent in the first issue. And then I think we love that idea. It was brilliant. And then I think at some point, I don't know who came up with the idea of like, well, maybe we change the color when we change the location, or if we like, in issue 3, we jump back in time to the 1960s again and the blue.
I thought that was just an interesting way to kind of like break it up, but not make it like so many colors all the time where there's all these things going on, but it's like a real like subtle change. And like the green in issue 2 was supposed to be because they're going to the wilderness. They're outside of like now the civilization that they knew. And so it's more like a wild color. And then Lynn was able to just kind of like carry it through, and we were also able to show kind of like the time changing in the year, like the seasons changing too.
In issue 5, yeah, we go to another like icy blue because it's the middle of winter, and it's also a very somber issue.
Yeah,
that was my favorite color palette. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I like that light blue one.
Yeah, that one was great.
This is an off the cuff question because. Correct me if I'm wrong, because when I read this, when I read the limited series, when they went outside the wall, because this is, because World War III happened in the early '60s. What I think the thing, who decided to how did you guys come up with the idea of making outside the wall, like, all these plants and trees growing? Because I thought that's a very nice contrast to a nice change in apocalyptic storytelling.
Well, we looked at photos of Chernobyl
Mm-hmm.
and used that as a big inspiration. I mean, that was that wasn't even as long ago as
That was
the
only like 40 years.
crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
That area is so overgrown as well. And like the wolves have taken over.
Yeah, it's like nature really finds its way back quickly if we stop like beating it back, and it's like, trees and growth and everything, especially like in the southern, parts of the US, it's still has a lot of access to water. And so there's going to be like a lot more lushness, I think, than most things are just like, yeah, everything's still burning. It's like, it takes a lot of energy to burn stuff, especially after that long.
All right, I'm going to start wrapping. Oh, I'm sorry, Lynn, did you want to add anything else?
Oh, well, I also definitely the Chernobyl stuff. I was also looking at like the Last of Us concept art, the game.
Oh,
so that was like a good reference point to like not just a lot of post-apocalyptic concept art I was looking at.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to start wrapping this up. This is for Erica and Desiree. Have you and your family been to Hawaii?
I have family in Hawaii.
Oh.
in Honolulu. My uncle and my aunt and my cousin have lived there since the early 90s.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I have been to all 50 states, and Hawaii was my 50th state. And I designed that basically on purpose. And so it was also the first state that I went to with my now husband. So I definitely took a bunch of signs at the national parks and stuff to commemorate the 50th state.
That's so cool. Okay, so now and then for Lynn, for our listeners, Lynn was born and raised in Hawaii. So Lynn, may I ask, what do you miss about Hawaii?
Sunlight. No, I'm not kidding. I live in a basement apartment in Brooklyn. Okay.
Okay.
I had to get special lights just so I want to get seasonal affective disorder. It is I really miss having the same amount of sunlight every day.
Especially in the winter. Oh my God. Especially right now in the winter.
Yeah, I don't like it when the sun goes down at 4 p.m. It's not right.
Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Last question. Any closing words to our listeners?
We hope that you find and check out Nuclear Power. It was definitely a labor of love over many years for all three of us. It's an all-female team, and we hope it's a very entertaining read, as well as maybe learn something. Maybe not.
Desiree, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I mean, it's definitely, if you like alt history, if you like thrillers and conspiracies, Nuclear Power is your jam.
Lynn?
Definitely check out fanbasepress.com if you would like to purchase a graphic novel and a comiXology. If you would like to see more of my artwork, you could check out ProtoKitty art at Twitter, ProtoKitty at Instagram, and my Facebook page, lenyoshiart.com. I think that's it. I can't even remember my own handles. But if you just look up my name or ProtoKitty, you'll be able to find my artwork on social media. So I'll promise to update it more.
All right. So Desiree, Erica, and Lynn, I want to wish you all the success with Nuclear Power. And mahalo. Thank you in Hawaiian for your time and giving me the opportunity to interview all of you. I also want to thank Barbara of Fanbase Press for help setting up this interview. Now, if you are a new reader or a longtime reader who loves alternative history, please check out Nuclear Power. It's available on comiXology, and it is out in trade paperback. Just ask your comic shop to order you a copy. I want to thank Drew, co-host for Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you for all your hard work behind the scenes. And please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit podcast that comes out every Saturday. And thank you. I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys, aloha.
Aloha. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.